Hi. Are you alone right now? I mean, statistically, the answer to that is yes. And as the person on the other side of the screen from you right now, I want to ask you the question, why? See, as the title of this video implies, loneliness is a product of our modern world. Not a bug, but a feature. There is a lot of research out there showing that we are lonelier than we have ever been. You've probably heard of this loneliness epidemic that we are in right now. Not only are we spending more time alone, but we are spending more and more money to be alone. Now, you might already know that this is not a good thing, but before you swipe to another video, let's keep this parasocial relationship going a little bit longer. We can talk about some of the reasons why, because they are pretty fascinating, depressing, but fascinating. I feel like this channel could just be called Depressing but Fascinating, with Levi Hildebrand. All right, so you and I interacting through this screen right now is a big component of what is going on in this loneliness epidemic. I don't know why I went so hard on this. This is just, the quotations was necessary. That's what it's called. Turns out we are lonelier than ever, and the reason is that damn phone in your pocket. There's a lot of research that shows that phone use and internet use is a big component on how lonely a person is. And we're gonna talk about that more in the video, but there is actually a lot of buildup to this particular moment that we're in right now. Now, you might have seen our convenience video that we released a couple months back, and in some ways this video is like a sequel or a prequel because the convenience that we talked about in that video is directly connected to the loneliness that we're talking about in this one. Every time you buy food on DoorDash, order a ride on Uber Eats, or watch a movie on Netflix, you are separating yourself from the friction of the real world experience of doing those things. Not buying the groceries to make a meal, not getting a ride with a friend, and not going to the Blockbuster to pick out a movie. Now, in that specific example, you're also not going there because there are no Blockbusters left, but that's also kind of a commentary on what we're talking about here. Now, as we talked about in that last video, these online platforms and services are monetizing your life as much as they possibly can. And sadly, it is going to get a lot worse because it already has. So we found this article written by Derek Thompson when we were researching for this video, and then Big Think released a video with him in it on this same subject. So if you've seen that one, there is going to be some overlap, so just bear that in mind. It's not on purpose, we're not ripping them off. As Derek explained in that article, the levels of loneliness that we're seeing today is not suddenly higher than ever before, but it's been a gradual process of increasing loneliness that's been happening for generations. So if we're kind of like on one end of the lonely to social spectrum, the other side of that spectrum is probably the 1950s. The post-war era boom and the New Deal meant that social gatherings were at a whole new level. Back then, most people were going to church every single Sunday. Back in the 50s, 35% of workers were unionized. And on top of this, social groups and clubs were thriving throughout this time period. I think the social calendar of the average person in the 1950s would put the Gen Z gamer into a coma. And I don't want to say that like that's perfect and that we should go back to that time necessarily, because it does sound a little overwhelming to me. But I think we do have to recognize that a lot of our social exhaustion that we feel today is a direct result of the overly dopamine dependent nerve endings that we've developed as a result of being on our phones all the time. But the phone is just the latest chapter. There are two big technologies that have paved the way to where we are today, and that is the car and the television. So if the internet is the thing that is driving our modern loneliness epidemic, then the car is what started it. The boom in the automobile industry and the suburban sprawl that happened as a result is sort of the first step of us being separated from each other in a very physical, literal way. In a very short period of time, people went from walking or tramming around their neighborhood to driving their big steel cars over vast distances every single day just to get to work or to school. Strong Towns has made a really great video all about this in much deeper detail, so if you want to go check that out, we'll leave a link to it down in the description below. But basically what this meant is that if you were a kid, you were being driven to school. If you were an adult, you were driving to work. And from a government perspective, highways were more important than libraries. Then around the 1950s, the television became a common household item, and this blew my mind. Over the next 40 years, American households gained about 300 hours of leisure time per year, and all of those hours, pretty well, were dedicated to watching television. The car took us off of the streets, and the television kept us inside of our house. And this massive shift proved something pretty essential to the economics of North America for the next 30 years. And that is that lonely and isolated people are good for business. All right, so I know that this is not a video about cars and car-centered infrastructure, but my degree is in urban geography, and I can't help myself, so you're gonna listen to some more of that. See, what cars do really, really well is they maximize the opportunities for companies to make money off of people by controlling the way that they get around. See, walking around is free. You don't have to pay anyone to do that. Maybe you need shoes, but even that's arguable. Public transit requires a ticket, which is usually pretty affordable, and the service itself is funded by the government in most cases. Obviously, there is a whole bunch of other economic benefits to public transit that we're going to simplify for this video, but you get what I'm saying. And if a person has access to both of those options, they can choose whichever happens to fit their needs for that particular day. And we're not even getting into bicycles. But individual cars under individual ownership need to be insured and repaired and filled up with gas or electricity. Those cars need tires and seat covers and accessories like those eyelashes that go on the headlights. Yes, we pretty well know now that cars and their infrastructure are terrible for the planet. They're not particularly convenient for the people that drive them, and they are incredibly expensive. But they do create a lot of value for shareholders. But the problem with all of these factors is that any rational person who can do some basic math can figure out that driving a car to and from work over a really great distance is not the most efficient or effective or economically viable way of getting around. And so this is where the television comes in. Television ensured that our attention was only focused on the kinds of things that companies and brands could monetize. Gary! Everything from the shows that you watched, the news that you listened to, and the ads that ran in between were reminding you that you needed to own certain things in order to fit into the social order that its content promoted and upheld. Now, we are oversimplifying some stuff, yes, and of course, if there is any feedback or things that you feel like we needed to dive into deeper, leave them down in the comments below, because we do read all of them and we appreciate the feedback that we get from you. But so far, what we've kind of talked about is a North American phenomenon. If you lived in other parts of the world, this might not look the same for you. But this next chapter of the loneliness epidemic is definitely a global one. Today's technology and the internet have created the perfect environment for companies to monetize our lives at every turn.
They're coming for every second of your life. That's what these companies are coming to. This company as well. And it's not because anyone is bad. It's not because anyone in this company has evil plans or is trying to do this. They're not even doing it consciously. It's because these companies like Twitter and YouTube and Instagram, everything, they went public and they went to shareholders. So they have to grow.
Now, of course, I'm not saying that the specific companies that make cars and make phones and whatever are deliberately creating this elaborate social structure to monetize the loneliness of individual people. But within our capitalistic structure where the sole motive is profit, there is no incentive to help people who are depressed or who are experiencing poverty. There is only the incentive to make a profit off of it. Now, I'm not going to get into the whole like socialism is great and capitalism sucks argument here. But a lot of the social programs and social institutions, the infrastructure like churches and libraries and public spaces and parks was pretty crucial to the social cohesion and the lack of loneliness that was going on back then. Today, we're not bumping into each other in the same way that we did before, right? We're not going to church, we're not going to run club unless it's to find somebody that we want to fuck. Why does our system create lonely and isolated people? Because if we're seeing an increase of this phenomenon over time, there must be a reason, right? Well, as I said off the top in this video, it's because lonely and isolated people are good for business. So if the car and the television created an environment that extracted the most possible value from the people who are living within it, the internet took this to an absolutely whole other level. The online world today, without any exaggeration, is constantly monetized. Every single second that you exist online today is being monetized by some company in some way. This isn't like OG, 2004 internet where we were just hanging out on MSN Messenger for funsies, okay? We're not downloading free shit on LimeWire anymore. This is a whole new game that we're in now. The modern corporate behemoths of our economy today, like the most profitable businesses on planet Earth right now, don't want you to be outside. They don't want you to be talking to real people. Because the thing is, they can't monetize a conversation that you're having with your friend, but they can monetize a WhatsApp message or a FaceTime call. Think about it. Every second that you're online, you are in a monetized space. Google runs ads on every single search. Instagram is constantly scraping your data. Netflix, Spotify, and so many others all have a subscription that you need to pay for. And you've probably heard the saying that if the product is free, then you are the product. And this is what they are saying when they're talking about the attention economy, right? I didn't know this, but when we were researching, it turns out that this was an idea that was coined back in the 60s. So this isn't even a new idea. We've known about this for a long time. People's attention is worth something. And if you think about this through like basic supply and demand economics, there is a finite amount of attention that every person can give to these companies. There is only a limited number of people on the planet. So there is just a massive amount of economic pressure to capture our attention by any means necessary. According to a Forbes article, we see 4,000 to 10,000 advertisements per day. I don't know if that's even close to true, but it kind of feels like it. No wonder we're canceling plans all the time, right? Because after a full day of being on our phones, getting constantly stimulated, it's kind of hard to imagine having a normal conversation with another human. This is an article that was written by The Guardian 7 years ago, but it must have been ahead of its time. It says that Netflix's biggest competition is sleep. Think about that. That is actually fucking crazy. It's not hanging out with your pals. It's not even another app or a platform. It's sleep. Like you just not being awake. That's the only window of time in a human's life that they cannot monetize, is when your eyes are shut, when you are not conscious. And you see trends about this all the time. Like there's videos of people celebrating when they have to cancel their plans. The whole touch grass movement is a baffling example of how this is manifested, right? People have to remind themselves to get off of their screens, go outside and like look at nature, touch grass, like interact with the real world. We have to remind ourselves to do that now. And this is why we're lonely, right? Like if the car and the television brought us off of the streets and into our homes, the internet is taking us out of the real world and into the online world. Now, of course, COVID accelerated this in a crazy way, but what seems like we are witnessing is the splitting of our world into two very different realities. Kyla Scanlon made a great video about this on Instagram, where she explains that we're heading from an attention economy to a simulation economy. Basically a future where it is easier and easier for people to exist online exclusively. She talks about how these massive corporations are able to spend millions and millions of dollars to make the experience of being online as frictionless as possible. This is what we were talking about in that convenience video. Public infrastructure in the real world, like sewers and libraries and highways, are literally crumbling, but you can have a DoorDash meal delivered to your house while you watch your favorite streamer in your underwear. There is something wrong with that picture. I heard someone else online explain it, and we couldn't find the link for this, but they said that AI slop is not a mistake. AI slop is designed to be this really engaging thing that you look at and go, whoa, what the hell, that's crazy. But the reason why you're seeing it is because it's not human. They want your online experience to be as insulated from other people as possible, because every time that you see a post from a creator like me, you're potentially gaining some social connection through that. You're being opened up to new ideas or perspectives on the world. And for more and more people nowadays, being online all the time is normal. Like take me, for example. I work online every single day remotely from home. I create videos for you through this channel. A huge chunk of my waking hours are spent online on a screen creating content. Now, fortunately for me, I am married and I have little kids, so I'm very distracted and very in the real world the rest of the time. Also, sidebar here, I think a lot of people think that I produce these videos all by myself. And that's just not true. Lou and Matthew are critical to these videos. Lou writes every script with me. Matthew edits all of these videos. So next time that you're watching and you like the editing, be like, wow, way to go, Matthew. You did that weird thing where you make Levi's eye look funny. And I like that, or whatever. I don't know. He'll do something funny here and prove my point. Oh my God, my back hurts, fuck. But anyways, it is not hard to imagine a world in the future where our every waking moment is monetized. Imagine that you live alone by yourself, which is not uncommon nowadays. Imagine that you have some kind of mental or physical disability, which is also not incredibly uncommon. And imagine that you've been socialized through endless scrolling throughout your entire life to believe that the real world is scary and dangerous and violent and somewhere that you probably just should avoid at all costs. But okay, let's take a breath here, right? Let's touch some grass, call our moms, remind ourselves that this is just a YouTube video. I'm just a guy sharing my opinion on the internet. At least you think I'm a real guy. Maybe I'm AI, who knows? Would AI make me do this? Oh, fuck. Dude, fucking ripped my lip open. The people are starting to realize what's going on when companies start using the terms like community in their marketing. They know that people without community are going to go to companies and brands for the love and support that communities are supposed to create. These brands and companies are trying to fill the void that they created in the only way that they know how, which is with more consumption. They want you to order an Uber before you ask your friend for a ride. They want you to listen to some fucking guy rant on the internet instead of listening to your friend rant in a bar. Because the thing is, when you really need help, when you actually need some support, they know that if you have a friend there, if you have somebody in your life that you can ask, you can get that help for free. And in that case, they're leaving money on the table. So they've made it insanely easy to disappear, to recoil and hide from the real world safely within the cocoon of the internet. It is honestly heartwarming, though, to see that this latest push with AI is being met with resistance. People are seeing that there's a lot of downsides to an online-only life, and that they might have to do a little bit more than just metaphorically touch grass to avoid it. We would have loved to dive into the simulation economy that's going on with AI right now, but we don't have time for it in this video. Maybe that's a part 3 in this series. Let us know if you would like to see that. If you are enjoying the content that we create on this channel, though, in general, subscribe and support us on Patreon if you want to see us make more content into the future. A huge shout out to our Patreon supporters for making everything happen over the last little while. Your support means everything. We'll see you in the next one.